Hello everyone. Today I would like to share with you some thoughts on the phenomenon of NI drifting. Are you a drifter? Well, contrary to what you may believe, the phenomenon of NI drifting is actually the sign of very healthy use of NI, and as you know, since we have to understand the INFJ and the INTJ holistically, they're holistic types. Usually when we're talking about healthy use of NI, healthy connection with the NI, we are in fact talking about a healthy balancing between the different functions. Okay? The healthy balancing is relying on a kind of pretty simple recipe when you think about it. Trusting to be led by the guiding hand of NI. Okay? Like, NI is not something that you can just switch off. Technically speaking, we don't really use NI. NI speaks and does through us and sees through us. So allowing NI to operate relatively unhindered. That actually is not just compatible with, but necessarily linked with allowing oneself to be in environments where we absorb information unconsciously, usually through our SE function. It means also, in this case, we can talk of a use of FE, which is balanced, and a use of TI, which is also balanced. That is to say, a little bit less prominent than the use of FE, but still more prominent than this mostly unconscious SE use that I'm talking about. So often, probably always, you're not going to be able to tell that you are achieving. Motorbike right there, achieving like this perfect or near perfect harmony between the different cognitive functions that constitute who you are as an INFJ or as an INTJ. If you're an INTJ, obviously we will be talking about TE and FI rather than FE and TI. So we usually know things by their effects, not by their internal mechanisms, because we don't have access to those. And the effect involves, among other things, this is linked to what I describe as the oceanic experience of NI dominance, of true NI dominance. One of the effects is what I call the phenomenon of NI drifting. And the phenomenon of NI drifting is something like this. It's whenever you engage in any kind of activity that requires a particular kind of focus, whether it be intellectual activity, creative activity, literary activity, physical activity, movement-based activity, logistical activity, social activity, any kind of activity that you're engaged in, right? NI drifting is the phenomenon whereby an INFJ or an INTJ is focused, sometimes quite intensely focused, right? That goes with the NISE axis, on the particular activity, and then progressively just experiences those moments of unfocus. Focus dissolves, doesn't quite disintegrate, but it loosens, and there is this kind of drifting that takes place where concentration just wanders off into some other dimension of what we have to consider to be an emanation, a manifestation of the NI world. So the person kind of moves from a state of quite intense focus a lot of the time to unfocus, right? Distraction. It is a form of distraction. Now the NI drifting has this quality that the drifting in fact is limited in space and time and tends to always, by some kind of centrifugal force, or is it centripetal? It brings you back anyway. There is the drifting back that takes place, and back into focus, and back into sometimes quite intensive focus. But then the drifting will take place again, and you'll lose focus again, and you'll become distracted again. But again, when NI is really working unhindered, the phrase I like to use these days is trusting the guiding hand of NI. It will bring you back. It will bring you back. NI will find a way, okay? The poet Virgil said, fate will find a way, okay? Well, we can paraphrase this aphorism of Virgil's and say, "NI will find a way back. NI will find a way back," okay? If you can get to a place where you can trust and NI can find a way back, experience it and see that it does happen like that, it's a massive win for you. It means that you've achieved quite good integration of your functions in an ordered and balanced fashion. It means that you're not likely to get into high neurotic states, because for an INFJ or an INTJ, when you get like really neurotic about a particular situation or going through a neurotic phase, one of the first manifestations of this is distrust, not just of the external world, but distrust of NI to take care of itself, which is why usually what happens is an overinvestment into NI, an overinvestment which also takes place via either the function of FE, the function of TI, or both. When you bring too much judgment into NI, you shackle it, and you prevent, among other things, the phenomenon of NI drifting from taking place effortlessly and naturally, right? So when you see that the NI drifting is happening, as I have described it, you know that you're not going through a neurotic stage. You know that you are doing pretty well and that you are being pretty balanced and likely pretty healthy, okay? Now, what's important to realize, and I will finish with this observation, is that in order to get to that stage, you do need a balanced integration of your functions, which is to say that the functions of judgment particularly are important. If there is not enough investment in the function of judgment, which is something that is often noticed, I have to admit, is something that I'm observing more and more, and this is a source of worry, this is worrisome, in the generation, in Zoomers, in the Generation Z, and we'll see about Generation Alpha, but it's likely to be even more pronounced, I'm afraid. You see a disinvestment of the FETI functions, and an overinvestment, an overdevelopment of the NISE axis, which actually, contrary to what you might believe, does not lead to more expansion and flourishing of NI, but to a lack of structure, a shapelessness, and a fall into meaninglessness. You need to have the super egoic structure of the FETI functions to bring at least a frame to NI. It's a pretty flexible frame. NI does not have to have a strong frame, a rigid frame. In fact, when it does, that's what kills the drifting. But when it doesn't, it's so shapeless, when it doesn't at all, like when there's no FETI framing going on, the shapelessness of the experience prevents drifting from happening at all. And this can actually get you to be quite depressive ultimately, and to be lost in this wandering realm of depression. Whereas when there is too much FITI intervention, usually what you get is a more neurotic states, like becoming obsessive or becoming what psychoanalysis calls hysterical or avoidant or other things. Okay? So that's NI drifting for you guys. Let me know if that was intuitive for you, if you thought that was useful. As usual, give me a like if you enjoyed the vid, guys. Don't forget, I've written 2 books on the INFJ in this case, where I go into these topics in more detail. The latest one is called The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in a Modern World, which is all about how INFJs can lead a life in the modern world which is not scary, where they can trust the world and themselves, and that the key resides in being authentically themselves. That is to say, being authentically NI, being authentically NIFE, being authentically INFJ. This book explores just how you can do that. And by the way, there's a prequel to the book called The Ecstatic Soul, Infinite and Ecstatic. That's the INFJ for you, in my conception of it anyway. A new look at the INFJ personality, and this is basically the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind you will find online, INFJ consciousness. What's it like to be an INFJ? What's it like to feel like an INFJ and to think like an INFJ? If you want to know more, get this book, check the reviews of both books. It might just make you want to get the books. And as usual, guys, don't forget that the lifeblood of my channel, the lifeblood, is my Patreon page, the cornerstone of just how I can keep going with my videos. So if you'd like to support my work from as little as $3.50 a month, you can go a long way toward helping me. And in return, don't forget you get nice perks like access to a Discord server. I'm there almost every day, or pretty much every day. You can interact with me and others in the community. You get access to bonus videos every 2 weeks where I go more in depth about a particular topic from my books or mainstream YouTube, and other perks too. So click on the link, consider it, and hopefully see you there. Okay, talk to you next time, guys. Bye-bye.